Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of From Page to Stage. I'm your host, Wendy Corner, and this podcast is for you if you are an entrepreneur. Yes, page and stage come together in entrepreneurship. And you may be thinking, really? Page? Well, maybe you've got a contributory book out. Maybe you've got a solo book out. Maybe you've got a regular blog. But if you're an entrepreneur, you've got socials, haven't you? And what's that if it's not published work? Let's expand your idea of being an author. Okay, we've ticked that box. What about the stage thing then? Because a lot of people go, oh, I can't do the public speaking. No, that's just not for me. Well, my comment is, can you have a one-on-one conversation with someone? Yeah. Then you can do a podcast, just like we're doing here. So come on, what's stopping you? Get hold of me. Let's have you talking about your fabulous work on this podcast. Right, that's got that bit sorted out. Now, today I am so excited to interview a gorgeous lady who I got to meet in person last month. It was last month, wasn't it? Yeah, last month. We're recording this in December, and we actually hooked up in November. Now, ordinarily, Becky's in the States and I'm all over the world, but we coincided, and it was so precious to physically meet. And now we're going to get to talk to you all about it. So, okay, Becky, I know a little bit more about you than I did last month, but tell our audience a little bit about yourself and how you got to being where you are today.
Well, I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story. So, obviously, everybody knows my name is Becky Amble, and I'm a farm kid. And typically, us farm kids are honest, open hearted. We like to help people. Sometimes I say we're naive, but saying we're honest and open hearted sounds better than saying we're naive and gullible. Anyway, one day I was driving my little ranchero, and it was like God spoke to me. And I heard in my head a voice that says, "You're going to have an accident." And I was on a gravel road. My little ranchero started fishtailing. I went down the ditch and boom, I crashed. The next thing I knew, I woke up in a plowed field. And my first thought was, "Oh, I'm so tired. I just want to go to sleep." And I knew if I closed my eyes, I would die. I would never wake up. So opened my eyes, gathered myself together, and walked up the ditch and went to a farmhouse and knocked on the door and all that. And two women took care of me and let me stay there until my mom and sister came to take me to the emergency room. And it was kind of after that, you know how these things happen. And I realized that you never know when your time is up. And you've got to make every moment count. So, in my work and in business, really in my life, I now have an urgency to make the most of every minute. And when I work with companies, I want them to be able to make the most of every minute and to live their true life through their business, since that's where I focus, but to live so that they're living their life and they're enjoying those moments or experiencing those moments as best as they can. It's like I said, you never know if today's the day.
Oh, wow. I did not know that story. Thank you for sharing that, Becky. You were how old?
I was actually just starting college.
Right. Whoa. That's a pretty big wake-up call at a very young age. Yeah.
Yeah, it was rather shocking.
Yeah, I can imagine. No long-term damage from your concussion.
Well, I have plates in my arm,
Right.
and I did have head contusions, but I'm not going to volunteer that I got something wrong with my brain.
No.
It's just the way I am.
Love it, love it. Thank you for sharing that because that's the thing, isn't it? Our origin stories are so important because if you can share something like that, what comes later as a result of that origin, people are going to go, oh, wow, that makes it so powerful. I really want to hear what you've got to say now because I know where you've come from. Your why is what really sets the scene. Oh, gushy moment. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Take us back in time. When did you first get the idea that this writing thing was something that you could do? might even have enjoyed it?
Well, that's a great question. And I don't think much about it. Actually, it's either high school or college, one of my very best friends, she and I did have this idea that we could write a novel. So we started brainstorming together. That didn't really go too far, but we had this, well, because we were both crazy readers. And for me, I pretty much love to read murder mysteries, spy things, as long as they don't get graphic, because I don't like to have graphic violence. And she also was a reader of different genres than me oftentimes. She liked to read Louis L'Amour and some other different authors. And we just thought, hey, let's get working on something. So we started that, but I don't even exactly remember. We just didn't get too far. But then in college, my first year of sophomore in college, I was engaged with my team to do a national research study.
Okay.
And so we did that, tons of work. So I have done tons of writing that is research oriented, fact
Right.
oriented,
Sure.
reporting things that I've researched. And to me, that's a different kind of writing. It wasn't necessarily that I said, man, I love doing this, let me at it. It was a requirement. And
Yeah.
yet I think that helped me feel like, well, I can write different things because I'm a research fiend and I have a lot of information to share. And it almost seems like a natural thing then to say, well, why don't I just put it into words?
Yes. Okay. So academic writing was where you really started off.
Yeah, yeah. And like I said, research studies
Hmm.
that I was involved with. And even then, early on in my career, doing research and putting together here's what we know, here's what we need to do, because this is what the data shows, or this is the industry trend, or whatever it was that I was researching. So, yeah, I'm pretty used to reporting on boring information.
Required information.
There you go. And actually, things that make a difference to business people.
Well, exactly, exactly. I mean, okay, it may be dry, it may be potentially boring, but it's significant in that that's what drives what comes next.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
absolutely.
Okay. So, how many books have you written?
Well, I don't actually keep a good count because I wrote several books in the old days before we could put things on Amazon. So I think I'm probably around 20 books.
Whoa. Have you got copies of all of them?
Hmm, yeah, maybe not. I mean, the one book that you can see over here, my marketing operations system, I've
Mhm.
rewritten that 4 times and it needs to be
Okay.
updated again. And that was something I used with a lot of clients where they needed help to put together their marketing plan, but they couldn't hire me enough because they were small businesses. And so then I would give them assignments. And then it turned into the book where, okay, here's the first thing you do, go work on that. Here's the next part. And it was magical because I learned that you can do a strategic marketing plan, you could call it strategic plan, marketing plan, whatever, in 5 minute chunks. And that's a lot of what I was doing when I was running my groups, just saying, okay, you got 5 minutes.
Okay. So, is that a case of Parkinson's law? You will fill the time that you're given.
To a certain extent, my theory on that is that most people know what they need to do or what the answers are to the question. They don't know the questions and they don't know how to put it together so that they've got a plan. And when I ask them things like, okay, who's your target market? Well, I explain that to them and then we can talk about what that is and what makes what you do different, better, unusual, whatever. And they
Yeah.
know these things. They just really, a lot of times, don't know that they need to answer them and get it
Right.
organized.
Right. So, are we talking about startups? Are we talking about small businesses? Where does that bit fit in?
I really think it applies to all of them. When I see things on LinkedIn or talk to people and they talk about clarity and focus and all this, I think, yeah, you need a plan. You need to be clear on what your goal is and
Yes.
how you're going to get there, specifically how you're going to get there. What are the things that need to be done? And one of the things that I have done over the years is I use what we call a quarterly planner. And I learned all this at Medtronic, the pacemaker company where I was working early on in my career, which was a great opportunity because I learned a lot. And
Hmm.
once you have your annual plan, you break it down into each quarter, or as some people talk about, the 12-week plan. And I'm thinking, we were doing this 40 years ago. And so breaking it down into a 12-week plan or something really makes it more operational. And all of my clients in the past, they said two things were the best that I helped them with. It was that quarterly planner, or it was getting research done so we knew exactly what the customers were thinking.
Yes. Well, that's really important, isn't it? Because, I mean, unless you are on the same wavelength as your customers, you're just not connecting. And it's very difficult to actually sort of open somebody's head and go, what you're thinking.
If only it was that easy.
And mind reading is notoriously not accurate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So the research that you do in terms of that sort of thing, I'm being nosy here and
Sure.
picking your brains while we're going at it. So how would you, what research would you do in terms of finding out the customer's real thoughts?
Oh, that's a really good question. And I guess it gets into kind of our proprietary approach. We use one methodology. We work primarily in the B2B space. And so there's different things if you're working B2B than if you're doing B2C. So
Right.
I'm going to speak B2B because that's my area of expertise.
Sure.
So we have one methodology, and a good friend of mine's a PhD, and he and I go back and forth and all this. And it's like, yep, he agrees. This methodology. I've got another friend. Yep, he agrees. So we basically say the best way to get at it, you need to come up with the questions in your questionnaire. And there's all kinds of weird stuff that we do. Like we say, have your questions on one sheet. You just want one surface. So that means probably somewhere around 10 questions. And what you want to do is you want to interview people on the phone, or if you want to do face-to-face that. And I always say, have somebody other than someone in your company do the interviews, because if it's somebody in your company or me doing my own interviews or you doing your own, that introduces bias right there.
Yes.
And people don't want to tell us things that we might not want to hear, or they think we don't want to hear. They don't know what we want to hear. And so they are real cautious a lot of times. So that's why I say, get somebody that's a trained professional that knows how to ask the questions and goes through it. And when I train my people, this might sound ridiculous. If I were asking you a question, we went through question number 1, my next answer to you is, thank you. My next question is, and from the standpoint that I don't want to give anything of value, go, oh, that's great. Oh, how interesting. Oh, how this, how that. No, it's thank you and next. And because we have to be so careful about not introducing bias. So a lot of it has to do with asking them to what's their experience with the company, what do they like, what don't they like, what are suggestions. And of course we preface all this ahead of time because we're independent third party, and tell them we want to hear anything that you have to say, good news, bad news, whatever you think, because we're here to find information that can help this company do a better job. And you need to preface it that way. And when you do that, most people are willing to talk and to share. And we also tell them nothing they say will be identified back to them. Yes. So it's not like they're going to feel any retribution or any concerns about somebody looking at them funny next time they meet or anything like that.
Yeah. That's such valuable information, isn't it? Because I mean, the bias thing is incredibly real. We like to think, no, I'm giving you an unbiased opinion. No.
Yes, like a major company, I was doing business with my brother. He was a stockbroker at a major company, and they had him do his own interviews. And I'm thinking, not only am I his client, I'm his sister. Are you people crazy?
No family bias in there. No.
Yeah, really. I'm like, what am I going to say? I love my brother and I think he's great and he did a great job for me. However, there's anything that I'm concerned about, how am I going to say that to my brother?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So it's neutral people. It really is important that you get, and as you say, also well-trained neutral people.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, because people think, hey, I can just call and ask these questions. No, the last study that I did where I had some volunteers, I think I had 2 pages of directions.
I'm only asking a question. The words are one thing, how you deliver it.
Yeah, so there's probably more than you wanted to hear in this answer.
Yes, I mean, on that front, my background is in speech pathology, and there were occasions when I would be working with clients as they were disclosing some form of abuse, and in order for that to be admissible in court, there was absolutely no leading questions. And no leading in terms of the nonverbals as well. because that was important. I mean, potentially
Yes,
the case could get
absolutely.
thrown out, whereas actually, no, this was important evidence. It needed to be presented. So yeah, no, I can fully understand that one. Okay, so data is your thing. Data is your thing, and I know you get really excited by that. So good for you. Good for you. We're so different from that in that respect, but it is important when we're talking about business stuff, isn't it? Absolutely, absolutely. So tell us about. So that was we started off going backwards in time. You say you roughly got 20 books out. Tell us about the latest one that you've got out because that's recent, isn't it?
Yeah, thank you. It's called Grow or Die, and it's mastering the four pillars of profit. And again, I've gone to a gazillion seminars, got my 2 degrees, worked at a major company that brought in the big buck consultants like Boston Consulting Group, McKinsey, and all those kind of people. So I think I had access to some pretty good information. And
Mhm.
then in one of my positions, I ended up being a college instructor, or you could call me a professor, I suppose. And I was teaching marketing and management. In particular, marketing is what I love. And a lot
Uh-huh.
of people don't know the fundamentals and they know all the short tactical things because that's what agencies are selling to them and all of
Yes.
that, which is important. However, I say you need to have the foundation. So
Yeah.
when I hear people talking about, oh, Wendy, this is what you need to do to grow your business. You need to, sell higher ticket items to your current customers. You need to bundle stuff. You need to get them buying more things or more often and all that stuff. And I know those are all ideas for sure. And yet I realized in all of this discussion that these people don't have the foundation because there was something that came out back I think in the 50s or 60s, the Anshoff model. And it
Mhm.
basically says there's 4 ways to grow your business, 4 basic ways. Now, within that, there's little subgroups and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And I just thought this has been around. Apple Computer uses it. The big companies follow this methodology.
Mhm.
And I then decided, okay, let me put this all together because, again, I can get the research done. And it's something I've used in my work and with businesses for a long time, well, my whole career. And I thought, if people have the pieces, they're just going to do better than somebody saying, do this, do that, and it doesn't connect. If we don't have the foundation, sometimes we go off and think we know something, but maybe we know half of what we need to know or a tenth of what we need to know. Well, I want people just to have better information and be able to go, oh, now I get it. That makes complete sense. That's why, I want to use this particular strategy.
Mm. Well, that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, it's all good and well putting the roof on, but if the foundations aren't in there, it's going to float and fall.
Yeah, exactly. And, when I did this book, I've got questions. There's the 4 main strategies: market penetration, product penetration, market expansion, diversification, these different, they have names. It doesn't really matter what they're called. Anyway, there's different strategies and they have different risk levels and they have different complications and all those kinds of
Okay.
things. And so in each chapter, there's questions the person can ask to help them figure out which makes the most sense for where I'm at, for where my business is at, for where I'm trying to go. And that's
Mm.
what I think a lot of times is missing because people will just throw out these ideas
Yeah.
and they may have used them or they may not or whatever. I don't know where people come up with some of these ideas. And then those of us listening go, oh, I got to go do X. Well, maybe that's not the right X for you today.
Yes. Yeah.
A lot of people love diversification, and that's the highest risk thing. And actually, if you do an acquisitions 70, 80% of the time fail. And yet, that maybe to a lot of people sounds exciting and new and different. So we want to run to that because that just sounds like a lot of fun. Well, that is the highest risk strategy and often the least successful. So it's where you need to back up and look at what are you doing now and what does make sense.
Well, I mean, the case in point, something like Lego. Lego nearly went bankrupt because it had gone into theme parks and it had gone into all these wonderful diddly duddly duddly things that meant put their production costs up without actually being particularly revenue driving and nearly went under. And then when I believe it was a new CEO who said, what do people really want us for? They associate us with little creative blocks. It's the creativity that's driving it, not the theme parks and this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
That's a great
Bright,
example.
shiny objects.
And Legos has done a phenomenal job and gotten back to what they
Yes.
are. And they're brilliant in that you may be aware of this too, that they actually have on their website where people can give them ideas for new products. And then that gets flown around, or I guess
Yeah.
flown might not, but that's accessible by other people and people can go vote on the idea and all that kind of stuff.
Good.
So they get their users
Yeah.
helping them develop new products, which, I mean, how smart is that?
Brilliant. I mean, it's brilliantly simple.
Yeah. And
Why
we,
didn't anybody else say yes?
yeah,
Excellent.
because I mean, it's easy to make things complicated.
Oh, I love that line. It's easy to make things complicated. I think I might quote you on that one, Becky, if I may.
Sure thing. I'm not sure I've ever said it before, but it's true, isn't it? I mean, we can make everything seem like it's way more difficult than it needs to be.
Well, I mean, part of that is actually that it shows that you need me because it really is complicated, and the only way you can get through it is if you hire me. And yeah, I mean, I experienced that. Again, audience, if you didn't know, my background is in speech pathology, as I said earlier on, and the number of times that there's a power play with jargon,
Mm.
particularly in the medical department, because they will throw out all these long words. And I had students who I said to them, write, even to the consultant, in words of one syllable. And they said, oh, but I know the terms. Doesn't matter. You show that you know what you're talking about. You can put the posh term, official term in brackets if you like, but don't assume they know about our jargon. They know their jargon, they don't necessarily know ours. And if you
Yeah,
get into the
yeah,
habit of explaining it in words of one syllable, it doesn't matter whether you're talking to a consultant or a parent.
yeah. Really, using jargon is one of the number one ways to mess up communication and make it less effective.
Absolutely. Oh, and one thing we were discussing when we met up was the lost in translation thing between two people who speak English from different parts of the world.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay. Beautiful. So we've talked about these lovely books. What about your speaking journey? Tell us about that. How did you start speaking?
Well, back in high school, we did have speech and it was mandatory.
Oh, right.
And I got somewhat comfortable with it. And since my name is almost always the first, second, or third in the alphabet,
Yes.
I was used to being first. And frankly, I think being first is better because then you don't have the stress. Well, then I had speech class in college too. And usually, if there was a sign up or anything, I'd be like, okay, I volunteer. I'll go first or second, let me get this thing over with. And then I don't know if I did much speaking. Let me think about that a minute. I think it was, if I can remember the correct order, then, you have to do things corporate wise, and that can be huge. One of my earliest talks when I was at Medtronic was at the national sales meeting, where you're dealing with high power, super high paid people, and the president of the company, the CEO, whoever, any of the top level people are going to be there, and that can be a little intimidating. And one time I remember in particular, I'll never forget this. I was talking about one of the initiatives that I was running. It was called Flush the 5309. I still remember it to this day. And it was a product that I needed to come up with the strategy to phase it out because we were bringing in the replacement product. So there's a whole strategy involved with all that. So I was up doing my presentation about that, and I come back and I sit down and I feel somebody tap me on the back. It was the CEO. And I'm like, I won't forget that as long as I live, basically saying, hey, good job, girl. And I thought, wow. And this CEO was known for his personal notes to people and paying attention and all that kind of stuff. And I thought,
Oh,
wow, I was probably 24 years old or something like that.
mm,
And that was just so huge. And all of that gives us a little boost. We had other training at Medtronic that we were trained in facilitating meetings and all those kinds of things. So that helped. And then in my next job, I was the college instructor. So I was up talking all the time. And that, frankly, is a really good experience. Not only did it get me back into my content, where if we have a college degree in something, unless it's probably engineering or accounting, we're more theoretical and conceptual a lot of times. And it forced me to get back and look at some things and, frankly, review the Anshoff model that became this last book. And that, plus being able to stand up and talk, usually the classes were an hour long, but it took a lot of prep, unfortunately. However, just being able to stand up and talk in front of the group, finish that class, go get my stuff for the next one, show up and do whatever the next topic was, it really does, as I'm sure you do in your speech coaching, it gives you that practice. And the practice helps with any fear or frustration or nerves or whatever might be going on, so that it becomes more natural. And I know when I was speaking to my classes, I would even throw in some humor. And I thought, where'd that come from? It just became more natural to be able to speak and to be maybe more human in that speaking versus getting up there and just going da 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 da, but to be able to lighten the mood sometimes and throw in examples and all that.
So what I'm hearing is you've done some presentation work, some big presentations, almost like sort of keynote stuff. You've also done a lot of teaching, which, I mean, and obviously you're doing podcasts as well, and you do summits where all of these skills audience are all complementary, but they are distinctly different depending on the stage that you're on. So I'm going to ask you, where do you see your sweet spot?
It's a good question. I do like speaking. I do a fair amount of what I call basic artificial intelligence overview informational talks, just to get people exposed to the possibilities. Because for me, possibilities are really fun. And then taking those possibilities or new tools, new skills, and making it work in business so you get results. That's kind of what I love. And so I think for me, a lot of the speaking about possibilities might be more interesting than if I get down into, all right, let's talk about today we're covering these 3 steps. And next time we're going to cover these 3 steps. So I think for me, I probably find a little bit more appeal in those talks that are, I don't know if I would call them more conceptual, broader base, but eye-opening kind, just sharing things that I think are great insights for people. I used to speak a lot on networking because when I started a finance company, I was basically everywhere. And people from one of our major universities here asked me, could you come and speak on networking? And I go, well, probably, because I didn't really think of it as a thing. It was just what I did to grow the business and get out and talk to people. And they said, can you come and talk about why people don't network? And I'm thinking, yeah, but I have no idea why they don't network. So 250 interviews later, I did have
you went
an
into research
idea.
mode, didn't you?
You know me, because I'm like, I don't know, what the heck am I going to talk about? I don't know why people don't do this. I mean, again, I think being the farm kid kind of helps me, because when I grew up, I was basically told, go out and do this. Well, what was it? I knew what I had to do, and what the result was. I didn't necessarily know how to do everything that I was kind of told, go do it. And so I think at least I had that idea that I'll figure out what I need to do. And so even when people were asking me about networking and why people didn't network, well, again, being a research fiend too, it just came natural to me to say, well, I got to go find out what they're thinking.
Yeah. Yes.
And then that turned into a book, which I have kind of updated, but I can't remember where I put my notes.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, we're moving into an increasingly digital age, and certainly COVID put the full stop on the world period on the world for a while, and then all networking was virtual.
Absolutely.
Since then, we're allowed out to play again, and some people who originally were going, I don't want to do the camera thing, are now going, I don't want to go back in person. Because, I mean, quite frankly, it's nice here because I can be posh on top, I can be dressed, and you don't need to see the jammies underneath. By the way, that's not the case at the moment. I'm just putting it out there. But I mean, back in the early days, before people realized that as soon as they got up, the camera didn't turn off, and you could see what was or was not underneath.
Yeah, yeah. To the detriment of some people.
Yes, yes. And in the early days, of course, I think Zoom was slammed because there were people who were interrupting a Zoom call because they didn't have their security sorted out. And
Uh-huh.
there were people who'd actually joined in an existing Zoom call, a professional existing Zoom call, and they moaned.
Yes, yes, I did. I think I was in one meeting where something like that happened and cut that meeting right. Oh, I mean, I wasn't running it. I can't remember who was, but it was like, oh man, that is nasty.
Yes, really, yeah. But my point is that we're actually now back into virtual stuff, and an awful lot of people, certainly within the speaking world, yes, there are in person, and there are still a lot of in person events going on, but there are also an awful lot of virtual events because some of the big companies that used to fly multinationals that used to fly everybody over to one place twice, three times a year are going, we'll do it once. You can have your regional hubs, or we just all zoom in.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. In fact, the article that I put out this week in my LinkedIn newsletter, I titled it Get Real. And because I spend tons of time working in AI and helping companies with
Yeah.
using AI to help them grow their business, be more efficient, and all that kind of stuff. And my whole point was you have to have the human element no matter what you're doing. And we can have a human conversation in Zoom. Where we aren't going to have a human conversation is if we have a chat bot talking to somebody else's chat bot. And I said, just like you said with COVID, everybody was like, oh my gosh, we got to get in touch with people. Well, then we were at Zoom meetings. Okay. Then everybody's like, oh God, I'm zoomed out. Can we do something other than Zoom? And pretty soon we could meet face to face. And then we got too many face to face meetings and people were excited to see everybody and all that. And then got to the point of going, I just can't go to all these meetings because it takes me a half hour or an hour to drive and get there and all the other things that kind of add up to the time. And so I said, now we're kind of in that mode of finding the balance of in person and online kinds of things. And my whole point was still, you got to be the human. And
Yes.
let's get to the point where we understand that, or hopefully everybody does understand that. And yet some people have gone overboard on AI and are using it in ways that don't make sense or
Yeah.
that are cutting out the people contact. And still, most people out there want to know there's a human that they're talking to.
Absolutely. Amazon, Facebook. I won't go on. I've had some interesting I got stuck in robot loops, basically.
Ah,
And you go, yep, that's an algorithm that's not going anywhere.
yeah, yeah, true. And oh, that's just so frustrating. And I mean, for those that don't use AI properly, you can get stuck in that do loop, as we used to say in the old days of doing computer programs. And it's so frustrating for the user. And they're
Yeah.
just going to get annoyed. So, I mean, there's ways you can have a chat bot that you use and you say, hey, if you want to talk to a human, push one, and you better get to a human right away.
Yes, yeah, and it's a lot those some of the big multinationals, they don't actually have a contact us, or they have a contact us, but you have to go looking for it, and then it's only virtually. There's no human at the other end.
Yeah,
You can tell from
absolutely.
the responses coming back, no, that was computer generated.
Oh man, yeah, I can't tell you how many times I've been in one of those and they're like, you're just not getting it. Get me a human.
Yes, yes. Mm. Mm. Yes, we could go down that road. AI is fun when it's used properly, and it is expanding all the time,
Oh
obviously.
yeah.
So we've talked about your writing, we've talked about your speaking. This book came out in November, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, I think, November 19th. I think
Yeah,
that's what it was. Just after I got back from seeing you.
yes. So November 2025.
19th or 20th. Yeah, yeah, just this past November.
Great, great. Now that's obviously available on Amazon.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Can you get it in bookstores as well?
No, I haven't worked the bookstore market. I just
Okay,
put things out on Amazon.
sure, sure. And you have it in Kindle form as well?
That one is Kindle and paperback. Yeah.
Great, thank you. All bookstores, primarily Amazon, but that's lovely. Okay, thank you. So I'm going to ask you, we talked about speaking and writing. How do you embody your words when you take them from page to stage?
Hmm. Well, maybe one of the easiest things is when I was speaking a lot on networking because I had to go through and figure out what is it that I do, lay it out into a process, and then I would share some of the obstacles and things like that. So I think for me, it's taking it, I like process and I like steps. And when
Mhm.
I'm working with people, I want them to understand what we're trying to get to and how they're going to get there. And so, like with the whole thing on networking, did the research, and also then I came up with my own mnemonic partner. And now for prompting, I have a mnemonic clear, and each letter stands for something. So I try to make it simple and yet have some meaning, and use things like mnemonics for memory joggers. I don't know if that answers your question.
Oh, yes. I mean, visual person, are you, perhaps?
Yeah.
Well, that's it. I mean, if you can bring things alive with wonderful examples, it sits. I'm remembering that I went to back to a college to do when I was doing some massage training.
Mm.
And I was thinking I'd be the oldest person in the room. Well, I wasn't by any manner of means. But our lecturer was really good fun. And she was explaining, forgive me, audience, I'm going to talk about the Krebs cycle for a minute. It's something that happens within the cells. You don't need to know any more than that. But there are certain elements to it. And she drew a staircase on the board and she put her husband at the top. And she said, well, when I kick him off this step, some ATP gets thrown off. When I kick him off this step, some more gets. And I remembered that because she made it fun and she made it simple. And when you've got those lovely illustrations like that, it does become memorable. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You know, the last book that I did that comes out next week is called The Job Loss Grief Guide. And that came about actually when I was in Mexico and with my sister, and her son died last January. And so it's been a really, really difficult time. She brought, I don't know if I brought that book to show you, the little grief book. And I thought this is really a great book. And it was small and it was approachable. It had line drawings, it had different size print that was sort of a funky font, and then the regular size print, and it had a color page, and then it would have the rest pages in white for another 5 or 10 pages and all that. So it just made it approachable. Well, then I decided that, boy, I get so many calls from people that are in a job search, and I know that a lot of them are hurting
Yes.
and have a grief process. So while I was still in Mexico, I'm on my AI saying, okay, here's the model, here's the book concept I want, and go research this and research that. And I had two AIs working, and then I'd go back and I'd say, now do this, now do that. And I'd go back again and again. And that one for me just became, because I'm that helper person, I just thought, this is needed. This isn't my work. I don't work with job seekers, although a lot of them call me because people say, talk to Becky. She knows all this stuff about AI and about LinkedIn and about YouTube and et cetera, et cetera. So people call me and think I'm going to help them. And usually I introduce them to more people. Anyway, I just thought, I think that's really a void, and people need something like this. So after I got back, I met with one of my friends that works with a lot of people in job loss, and he goes, oh, this is great, you got to do this book. And then
Mm.
my coach out of Scotland, he's like, get it done this weekend. I'm like, oh, okay.
Just like
So
that.
that's going to be coming out, but it's more of an book of service. However, what I did do is I put in some line drawings,
Mhm.
like a heart with a band-aid on, and every section has an idea that's called reflection questions. And so I have a magnifying glass, just trying to break it up. I've got a funky font for the headings versus, what a business book looks like mine.
Yes.
Typically they're like, here's the chapter, here's a quote, or here's some content, then there's a bullet, and then there's a heading, and then there's 3 bullets, and then there's a paragraph. I mean, they just look like ho hum. And I thought, I wanted this to be like that other book that my sister brought for me to read, that makes it seem like it's just a different kind of book that
Yeah.
is hopefully not as imposing as when we look at a typical business book that, frankly, we know what they're going to look like. They can be great material, yet they just kind of don't have a lot of pizzazz to them.
That's a good word, pizzazz, isn't it? I mean, that's the thing. We tend to think of grief in relation to loss of a person,
Right.
but grief can happen in so many different ways. I mean, people who migrate, people who have had surgery. It may have saved their life, but if they've lost something, something has been removed, then actually you can grieve the body part that's gone.
Sure. Yeah.
So all sorts of things. It doesn't have to, and as you say, losing your job. All of these are micro griefs, and some of them are not so micro, but
Yeah.
they're not
Yeah.
necessarily recognized as such. I mean, if somebody's had a miscarriage, finally people are beginning to realize that that's a grief as well.
Absolutely.
And if you've
Yeah.
never managed to have children at all, that's a grief or can
Yeah.
be.
Yeah. Exactly.
So yeah, there are all sorts of, as you say, different forms of grief.
Yeah.
And
And the book that my sister brought is a universal grief book. However, you can tell it's primarily geared toward people that have had somebody that they lost, somebody that has died, which of course is huge. And yet it was after reading that I thought specifically people that have a job loss
yeah,
have certain things. I mean, they might be angry at their previous employer. They might be missing their coworkers and now have nobody. And it's
yeah,
different than other kinds of losses to a certain extent. And that's why I thought, you know what? I think I just need to do this.
yes. Well, thank you for doing that. On behalf of all of us who've lost our jobs down the years, thank you.
Yeah, who hasn't? At
Yeah.
least lost a job once.
Yes. Well, and I would, I'm going to go and have a check it out as well because yes, there are still one or two little smarty moments, but yeah, thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you. So there's another book. How often do you produce books? Because you seem to be quite prolific here.
Well, I did 4 books this last year,
Oh my
and
word.
because I like to keep busy, it's probably part of my flaw that just the other day, one night, I was trying to find a movie to watch, something on TV, and I just thought, dang, this is so boring that I almost went and got my computer. And I thought, no, you just got to stop this. So for me, I know I can do the research if that's part of it. I know I can crank through. I fight with Amazon. I'm getting better at winning in that game. And like this time when I uploaded the version for Kindle, I think I just had to upload it one time and I figured out I called them. They've been really good, by the way, at returning my phone
Oh,
calls. If you haven't tried that, man, they have been awesome. And sometimes within like 10 minutes. Anyway, so I called them and I said, here's what I want to do for my Kindle. Can I use the same cover? Well, yes, you can, but then that didn't really work. But I was able to go recreate because I used the Kindle creator or the cover creator that Amazon has. So I was able to do that because I've done that a couple times now. So, every time you do something, it gets a little easier. And I'm thinking because these books don't make a pile of money, well, they frankly hardly make any money. And this one, after putting in 40 or 50 hours, I realized that, it's not about making the money because that'll never happen with this book, I don't think. And I just wanted to be able to get it out and help people that I know are hurting. In fact, my friend, when we got together and he reviewed my book, he was telling me about somebody that he met with recently that was so angry. The person can't get over their anger. And he said to the person, he said, you've got to deal with this because you're not going to make any progress. You're just going to be stuck in this. And I think that person probably had some financial issues about paying mortgages. And, it can be a whole lot of stuff that gets piled on a person.
yes, exactly, exactly. So after this one comes out, is this one coming out before Christmas?
Yeah, well, it comes out next week on the 16th. And
Okay.
I have 2 or 3 business books already, probably in their final edit. And I'm thinking, I just maybe got to give myself a little break here. I have a presentation coming up in February, and it's hilarious because this is somebody that I know really well, frankly, was a client of mine. And it's going to be on artificial intelligence. And he knows about some of the launches that I've done where I give people the 99-cent Kindle. And then if
Mhm.
I meet with them in person, like if it's a group where I'm
Mm.
launching, which I've done a couple of times, I give them $1. So they actually make $1 or a penny if they go get the Kindle for 99 cents and I gave them $1. And I just have a way that I do that with the information for the book and all that. And he's like, well, can you do a deal for us when you come and speak at my chamber? And I'm like, oh. So I thought, well, maybe that'll be my book about differentiation. And I think my working title on that one is called Stand Out.
Ooh, nice.
So we'll see. We'll see. Sometimes
And
I
that's
just,
February, so you're planning on chugging it out before February so you can actually.
yeah,
Nice.
yeah. And I'm thinking because I've worked a lot on that one, I think you and I talked about that one, and that's the one where
Mm.
there's a lot of research where over time the concept of differentiation has kind of evolved. And it's like, how do you take the different experts that have come up with ideas and either show the timeline, you had a great idea for that, or how do I integrate it so that people can use that information and which of the theories or which of the evolutions do they need to know? Do they need to know all of them? So I got to still sort through that, but that's the main thing. Otherwise I think I have the rest of the content pretty much hammered
Mm.
out.
Are you taking some time off for Christmas?
I don't really know. My one son will be back in Minnesota and he will actually be working. He works in Wisconsin for Microsoft and he's got everything humming, he says. So they said, we need help in Minnesota. So they're sending him back to Minnesota for a couple of weeks. Well, my guess is he's going to be pretty busy because that's the Christmas season when, of course, he works with the Best Buy stores. That's their busy time,
Yes.
probably 60% of their business or whatever it is. And
Mm.
so I have a feeling he's going to be a little bit busy. And I have asked him 3 times if he would go to the Trans-Siberian Orchestra concert with me, and he hasn't answered. So, and then my other son in the program he's in, I'm not exactly sure. I think he'll finish up one and then go to the next one, which I believe is in Wisconsin. So I'm not even sure who's going to be around as far as family goes. So,
Mhm.
we'll probably spend some time with my husband's family. But, if I'm sitting there going, twiddling my thumbs, feeling I don't want to get depressed because my kids aren't around or whatever. So I might just say, well, heck, this is a good time to get some work done. Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Time to type away, time to talk to
Brilliant.
Chat GPT and give it the next order that I have for it.
Oh, I've had some very interesting conversations with Chatty over the last few months. At one time, it was a case of, "Do you need a break? I
Ah,
mean, you've gone off. You've gone completely off the rails here. Do you
it said
need a
that to
break?"
you?
No, I said that to it,
Oh, yeah, I've
and
said
and
that too.
it said, um, I said yes. Okay, well, look, I need a break, so I'm going to give you one. Thank you.
Yeah,
It is.
we need to know when we need a break. And like this weekend, I'm going to go to a play with a friend of mine. We used to go to different plays, and so I'm looking forward to that. So I try to break up the time, but like I said, I think I get bored easy. And frankly,
Like to
I'd
keep
probably
busy.
rather work on a book than clean my house.
Oh yes, I know that one. I actually did some socials on it the other week. If you see me with a rag in my hand and I'm cleaning the skirting boards, ask me, what are you avoiding?
Now you're in a whole different world. Are you planning with your friends in Mexico? Are you doing some kind of holiday things then?
There will be a Mexican Christmas. One of the reasons, excuse us, audience, we're just having a general chit chat here. My intention is to get, well, this week I'm recording 4 episodes of the podcast so that I
Wow.
can have everything pre-scheduled. So between Christmas and New Year, and yes, I'm putting this out there for accountability. I'm taking the week off.
Good.
I'm putting that out there because I know somebody's going to come back and went, were you taking time off? So, yes, as we're winding up, then, have you got any final words of wisdom for us, Becky?
Well, I guess I would say for anybody in business, just be really clear on what you're trying to achieve. I'm a fanatic on planning, and that's kind of in my DNA, I guess. And through all my education, it's probably been hammered in my head. Medtronic, it was like, got to have the plan, get it nailed down, all that kind of stuff. And I think being real clear on what our goal is, what our objective is, and laying out what do I need to do to get there exactly, whether it's a solopreneur or something that's a little bit bigger or a large organization. And typically in large organizations, they're more regimented. So we probably don't have a choice but to get that plan done. And that's what I would kind of say is just be really clear on what you want to do and what you want to achieve, and then lay out what has to be done to get there. Because a lot of times that's where we probably go a little bit off the rails, and people will say things like, well, we're just going to sell more. Okay. How are you going to do that? Well, make more sales calls. Well, like to who? and like to what are you going to say? And, things just take a little bit more definition usually.
Yes, as you say, I mean, if you can think of Michelangelo, yes, Michelangelo and David. Well, there's a lump of marble. Yes, it's a lump of marble, a lump of marble. Unless you actually get it clarified, you don't actually see the beautiful statue inside. You've got to get your plan. He saw in his head what was in that marble, and
Yes.
that's what you're suggesting. We need to have a plan of where we're going, and then break it back down to how are we going to do it?
Yeah.
How are we going to
Yeah.
get there? Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I think a lot of reasons people don't do that is because it sounds like too much work. And frankly, it doesn't have to be that much work. I mean, when I was working with my clients and helping do the research and all this stuff, I was always pulling things out. So it was their plan. I mean, I could sit down, this is going to sound totally insane. I could knock out a 40 or 50-page plan in like a couple hours. I mean, that's extensive detail.
Mm.
And these were organizations that had a number of people, and I was laying out just exactly what was going to be done by who and all that stuff. So, I mean,
Mm.
it was a lot of detail. So, henceforth, it can be long. And you don't have to get to that level. However, if you've got a plan and you've got like one goal and you say, here's the 4 key things or the 3 key things I need to do, great. And then for each of those 3, you probably need to have some steps. Just
Yes.
lay it out. So you got it nailed. And then if anybody says anything, you're like, here's my plan. Or if you got a coworker, you go, here's the plan. Here's what we're going to be
Yes.
doing. And then everybody knows what to do.
Well, I mean, you're talking a lot about AI. As long as you know the right questions to ask, you can get AI to do the research for you.
Yeah.
It won't necessarily have it accurate. There's always that element of check the work, check the work, check the work. But gone are the days when when you and I were at university and it was, oh golly, it was going through all the journals, it was doing all the literally the physical book work. That's mercifully a thing of the past.
Yeah. And if you use it properly, and that's what is the key word is properly, is
Yes.
you can have it help you put together your plan. Now, you need to really be good at prompting, and you probably need to go back and forth and all that kind of stuff. And for me, a lot of times when I'm doing things, not necessarily a plan, but when I'm doing things, I just dictate a whole pile of stuff to AI because I've got the ideas, and a lot of people already have the ideas. And
Yeah.
so just I say jabber jaw, just dump everything into AI and then tell it organize this or put this into 3 main points or whatever it is that you're trying to
Yes.
do because we have the information. And I think a
Yes.
lot of times it's just a matter of getting it organized and getting it focused and clear.
Yeah. Why make it complicated when you can make it simple?
Well, yeah. And maybe that's what you tell AI. Simplify this because
Yes.
I'm all over the map.
Love it. Thank you so much, Becky. I really enjoyed our conversation. I'm so glad we got this together.
Yes, it's been great. And it was wonderful to actually meet in person. I just think you can't beat that, especially when we're from opposite parts of the world.
I know. Yeah. So as I was telling you at the time, that you're the second person that I've met in person from international networking meetings, because both of you happen to be in PV at the same time as me. So
Who,
yeah, love
do
it.
I know the other person?
I don't think so. It was a different network.
Okay, okay. Well, one thing I was gonna, because I know there was something that you asked me, what was my offer gonna be? I put out an email every Wednesday on a free AI tip if anybody's interested in that. I don't know if you're going to share my uh, LinkedIn
Yes.
or anything.
Yep. It'll all
So
go
I'm
in the
happy
show
to do
notes.
that with people. If somebody says, hey, I just want to have a 30-minute talk about what the heck I can do with AI, give me a holler. Normally we charge for those. I will do that as a complimentary thing if somebody reaches out after this.
Thank you, Becky. That's very generous of you, because you are Mrs. AI. I mean, I bow to your superior knowledge. Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed you sharing your from page to stage with us. For now,
It's been great. Thank you.
bye from us.
We'll see you.